We have Dan Tack.
Hey.
We have Andy McNamara.
Hello.
These people have spent thousands of hours of their lives for this moment right here to talk about World of Warcraft's Battle for Azeroth expansion, right?
Yeah. If only thousands, if not tens of thousands.
Really?
I don't
all
know.
been leading to
I don't
this.
want to know how big it is.
Yeah, I don't want to know. People often ask for your /played, and I'm like, I don't want to know.
Well, they took it away.
I just don't want to know.
You can't look anymore.
Did they really?
You can't see the account played. You can see the character played.
Oh my god.
But I mean, you can go look at all your characters and add it
But
up.
all my characters, they're not all there. Some have been deleted.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
it's-
Yeah, no,
all right.
I mean, it's
It's
certainly
an astronomical amount.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay, you guys, you've had a couple nights to play this, maybe a couple days. So how much time have you put into this thing so far? Where are we at for early impressions, at least?
Yeah, we're certainly in the early impression stage.
Yeah.
20 to 30 hours. Maybe
All
I
right.
think that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's where we're at because it turned on Monday at 3.
Like from the
Our
point where
time,
I went
our
on.
5
yeah,
our time, Central Time.
Right. Tried to, at least.
it's been basically nonstop play.
Okay.
Basically.
Some rough goes in the beginning. I saw people complaining, maybe just Andy on Twitter about difficulty getting in.
No, so first of all, when I got in at the beginning, it seemed fine. What happens is that when there's big hits like this, like the people on the East Coast aren't going to bed at their normal bedtime, right? They're going to stay on late. And then when the West Coast gets in its full swing at like 7 Pacific Standard Time, everyone is on, right? Like anyone who has the possibility to be on a high pop server is on it. So there was a time, maybe around like I started playing at 5, at like 7 or 8 my time as it started to lead towards prime time, it started to get real laggy.
Okay.
Right. So there was about an hour where I was playing where we were in the game, but we couldn't loot. Or like if you were going to delete something, you'd be like, I hit delete. And then you'd wait for 2 minutes.
Oh god.
And then it would go away, and then it would just randomly kick you, and then you kind of get back in, and then there was a hard like kick a couple times on the way, but there was one that was really hard at like maybe 9, like right at 7 Pacific Standard Time, that my server and a number of other servers just literally got turned off. They locked them out so no one else could get onto them as they figured out what the problems were. And they were doing updates, like you'd get kicked to like service incompatible, go out and have to get the update to be able to continue to play. So, and I'm saying this, by the way, this is out of respect for Blizzard. They have in the past had some of the best MMO launches I have ever seen.
Right.
Right? Like they have done flawless launches in the past.
They also did Diablo 3's launch.
Yes. Yeah, but I mean like MMOs are hard and they're complicated and they've done it well in the past. This one was just meh. Right?
Okay.
They've done better. They've done worse, and I've lived through worse. I had one where for EverQuest where it was literally offline for
Yeah,
the
if we
whole
go back
week.
to the old days,
Yeah, like
Oh,
there's
just couldn't play.
there are worse yardsticks that
Yeah.
it can be measured against, but like it was fine. And then after they finally kicked, and like I got kicked off for like an hour and a half, which annoyed me because Dan was leveling. Which I brought up to Dan when I came to office. Normally in our office, the first person to the max level in World of Warcraft is this guy.
Out of respect, you'll like hold back if you're
No,
close.
I
Just
don't want
let
to.
Andy take it.
It's a real competition. You know what I mean? I'm in, and I lost, and I lost, and I'm
Barely.
Kind
And I think
and so it's
His server
like,
being down, I think, was a factor.
Okay.
I did have that time period where it was like, couldn't loot, couldn't do anything. I had that same like burp, but it was short, and we hid inside of a dungeon during that time to still level up. While 'cause they're on different servers.
Oh, weird. Okay, little games. All right, so once you got in, Dan, what do you think of this thing so far?
Oh, God. Well, where to begin? Okay, so the new artifact system, I think I like more than the old one, but it is so early to tell. The fact that you just have this artifact power that you can channel into multiple different items, and you're getting different items that have different abilities on them, and then you can pick from assorted abilities on new items. So instead of linear progression from an artifact, you're going to be still getting loot. So you're still going to be looting up those slots. Except you can now tailor abilities in those slots as well. It sounds complicated, but it's not.
I can't believe they're tweaking the systems
It's
this
like
deep into the game's lifespan.
So if I get
they do this all the time. I mean, they usually they want to create they want to introduce a new gimmick. I mean, I know it sounds kind of mean, but they want to introduce a new gimmick to the way that you interact and level with every expansion. That's just kind of a thing that they do, right?
Yeah.
In this case, we had the artifact, which was your weapon. That was your main power source in the last one. In this one, they give you a neck that basically is the neck levels, the armor that fits in the 3 slots, being your head, shoulders, and chest, all have powers that are unlocked based on the level of that neck piece, of that neck artifact.
Okay.
So one, it drives you to level that thing up. So it's a loop, right? It's the loop they want you to do. Like where the past loop was get artifact power to increase the power of your weapon. In this case, increase the power of your neck so you can unlock powers on those pieces of armor.
Yeah.
I know it sounds complicated.
No, it's all right. I feel like we
It
should.
does sound complicated, but to dial it down, basically all
Please.
it is alternate advancement past 120. So
Okay.
you're continuing to level forever.
Can we zoom out a little bit more? So Legion last year, 2 years ago? When was that?
2 years,
2
yeah.
years ago. You guys were both pretty hot on that overall, right?
I think Legion was one of the best expansions the game's ever had.
Okay, great. So setting
Top
up
one or two. Yeah, I agree with
perfect.
them.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Battle for Azeroth, is it as big? Like, what's the
we're
scope
2
of
days in.
changes? No, I understand that, but like the scope of changes that you understand at this point, does it feel like a middle of the road? Is it a complete overhaul of everything you know about WoW, or like what's the
So
sense
a
going
lot of
into
the
this thing?
templating that happened in Legion, which was really good stuff, carries over to here. You've got these big zones that are essentially one big quest chain. You finish it off, you get some cutscenes, you get some story. You knock those out, except in this time, instead of just doing all the same stuff, Alliance and Horde have different areas, and you go to the Alliance area, sort of like incursion-style missions.
Raids, if you will, like you're raiding their island. To some
Well, yeah.
degree. It
Okay.
sounds silly. It's to promote war mode, which is a big addition.
And
to
that's
this
the
one.
thing we did the new gameplay today on a while back.
No, we did Island Expeditions, which we haven't talked about
Oh
yet.
God. Okay, got it.
There's a lot to unpack here. I'm
Sure.
just trying to make sure we cover everything important. So so as a Horde, we go to Zandalar, the crazy troll city, Wakanda. Okay, more or less.
Okay.
It is Wakanda.
It is.
It really is.
It
It
really is.
ripping
Yeah.
something
They're,
off.
they're
I don't
not, they're not
understand.
even shy about it, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's their thing,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
Like there's a boss I ran into called Totes. You know, Totes Magoat is like literally out there. I mean, like, and you get a
Yeah.
goat bag, is a goat tote.
There were
is what
a
you
lot
get
of.
from him.
I saw tons of references
They
already.
do
like,
that all the
Yeah,
time.
that's
I killed a
Blizzard.
crocodile boss. I got like the ticking watch from
Hook.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Do I have to get into WoW because they have Hook references
They
now?
have, pop culture references have been a core
They
of
have
WoW
Weenie the
questing
Pooh. There's
forever.
an area with a bunch of honey, and there is a donkey and a honey bear, and I mean, like, it's
Sweet Christopher Robin tie-in.
They play in.
They really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I love the new capital city.
Okay.
The music and atmosphere are pretty cool. The zones were all right because I did basically you have to do them all more or less to level up. You don't have to, but you should.
best. Okay.
You need to get that reputation anyway to do world quest later on in the game. So I found the questing was interesting. I mean, without getting into spoiler territory, that was mostly fun. Seemed a little bit quicker than Legion with a little bit less payoff for each zone.
Huh.
my
So they're
opinion.
leaning into the Horde versus Alliance thing with this expansion, right? Is that the
Absolutely.
overall theme? Is like,
That's
hey, we're
the
keeping
overall
some
theme,
nostalgia.
But there's
and
also
stuff.
something else definitely going on, and they hint at it extremely strong. They don't even hint at it; they just hit you over with a sledge.
Okay.
I don't want to put spoilers in, but yeah, there's some other forces are in play here as well.
Okay. All right. So it's just easy
I
marketing.
mean, I
to
think you could say that
think
like they've already pointed out that like the old gods are involved in some way, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
and for Andy's side, I hear on the Alliance side, it's much more in your face immediately.
You know, okay. Number one, I always find WoW lore to be pretty medium. By the way,
we could say I'd agree with that.
okay.
It's fun because I think the one thing that WoW does really well is that they take their lore seriously for the people that really love it, right? But they also make it pretty digestible and easy to like kind of get through. And so it's not overly complicated. There is a backstory that does get complicated, but like you can kind of pass through it. Like I watch all the videos, right? You know what I mean? When the videos come up, I watch them. I don't immediately skip them. I will immediately skip them from now on, right? When I do alts and things like that. But
Yeah.
you watch them. You want to see what's going on. But there's so many disconnects. Like this one cracks me up. Like there's literally at the beginning, a major character gets like sentenced to death, kind of thing, right? And then you just walk away, do world quests. You know what I mean? And like you
Look at Winnie the Pooh.
You don't even like really talk about it again for like a long time. You're like, oh. Yeah, and like people like talk about. I mean, and yes, you're like consolidating the Alliance or the Horde as like you kind of like build for the Battle of Azeroth, right? Which is the underlining war that they're doing.
Okay.
But I'm with Dan. Like they kept systems. There's a lot of systems that are similar. The Azerite thing, I think I maybe disagree with Dan a little bit in that like I think I liked the weapons better. I think I liked the artifacts better. I because I like that this one in this case makes it where I can, if I change specs. Like the other one, if I had to level up a weapon for tanking, a weapon for damage, and a weapon for healing, which that's a lot, right? And if you and your friends were like, "Hey, can you just tank that?" You're like, "I didn't level up my weapon."
You're screwed.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of work. In this case, with the neck is a piece you never change out. So when I switch to a different spec, I can already have a weapon that's pretty good, like that I picked up like doing things in the world. So it's easier to switch specs. I don't have to invest in much time into doing specs. But I found the weapons were more interesting, right? I felt like the world was more interesting in like Legion was like, you got everything. I always kind of said it was like kind of an Oprah moment. It's like, you get a car, you get a car, we got like everything we ever wanted as WoW players. And this one's definitely like a step back to be more, I don't want to say generic, but a little more flatline, right?
Okay.
And I say that in that like your powers that you get from these artifacts, I don't even notice them. You know what I mean? I like select stuff,
but I
and
think
I'm
that
like,
we will.
eh.
Like we're getting. I mean, I've got a few pieces of gear now that I can't even get the first tier unlock. Right?
Yeah, I
Like,
have that too. I'm just saying that like even when we get to the end and they add things and hopefully they add like active type of, because like Legos, they were a pain in the butt to collect, but when you got a Lego, you're like, I've got this shield now, right? It was like very obvious, and like the powers that they gave you in game were very apparent, right? And they were
huge and significant, and I think that's actually
what the
why
plan
they're gone.
is, right?
Why they're gone? Because before it was like you can't join our raid unless you've got 4 Legos or 3 Legos or
Yeah, I
that's
think you're
the
right. I mean, I
standard.
think that you're right. It's definitely grounding and making the game more accessible. But I don't know that I'm saying that makes it more interesting, right? If you're saying
That
the
makes sense.
high of the last one was like these Legos were really, and even like when you went from character to character or even from class to class, you would get Legos that were pretty different and pretty interesting.
Legos, just real quick.
legendary
Legendaries.
items. These
Okay,
are
thank God.
super
Sorry.
crazy.
Like the top end
God tier
items.
drops. Right?
Yeah,
If you got
right,
one of
like-
these, you were like, whoa! Like
Got it.
Like in Diablo,
You would grind
boom.
for 2.5 weeks to get one.
Yeah,
Okay.
And like one spec would have 12, 14.
yeah.
They have shared piece. So, I mean, like there was a lot of grinding to get those. And as Dan says, if you didn't have the best Legos, you were totally gimped.
Like you were letting your team down by not having Legos, and since there was an element of random, there's an element of chance. in
A
how you-
huge.
yes.
Yes.
It was almost you'd have to do multiple raids. You'd have to do everything.
It was disheartening as a player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you'd go play with your friends and you were like getting your butt kicked, it wasn't because you were bad. It's because you didn't get lucky.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is
Right.
exactly correct.
And luck was fixed over time. Right. Perseverance would always win. But
you had to persevere
But
a
you had to
lot.
persevere a lot. Yeah, it's true. But I mean, I felt like the highs of those moments were very high, right? Like they were really engaging. I'm not feeling that right now. But there's a lot of things that are in play here. There was a stat squish because basically at the end of the last expansion, we were hitting for like 6 million. Like I could hit something with my sword for 6 million, right?
Nonsense. Okay.
And then so they did a stat switch when they released 8.0 about a month and a half ago. And so like at the past I would have had haste in the thousands, right? And all of a sudden I had haste in like the hundreds,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
And I hit things instead of for millions, I hit it for like a big hit would be like, man, I hit that for like 6,000.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I
Huge.
mean, it was a huge shift. So like the game to some degree, I think feels a little like because we were at such a high and we're pulled back down, like the game feels slower to me right now. Like,
Interesting.
every
Okay.
character I play, like in the past, because I had high haste, because I had all these things, and I had a whole raid set, which raid sets are gone now, right? I had 2 of the top end Legos. Like the game was fast and furious at that point. Like every character I played had a lot of interesting things at play. And because we're going back to this ground zero, and because we don't know where we're going to be a year and a half from now,
don't.
right? Like, which is totally. I'm trying to be fair. I'm judging what's here.
Yeah.
I know where it's going, but like, all the highs are gone, right? Like, even on I play my paladins, what I played primarily, and I've also been playing my shaman some. But like, my paladin used to be like you'd hit crusade, and it would be like an accelerator. You'd just start hitting buttons as fast as you could to kill things, right? And that was a problem, by the way. I get why balance wise. It was a burst of damage they didn't want to have happen, that all my damage happened within that crusade. But now when you hit crusade, yeah, I mean I hit a little bit harder and maybe like a little bit faster, but it doesn't feel faster.
Yeah. Is that just a paladin issue, Dan, or do you notice that as well?
I'm guessing it's just because we are so
We're noobs.
we're early in the Azerite
Yeah.
cycle. We don't have the crazy gear that's going to be like you need an Azerite level 50 trinket to unlock this crazy blast off crusade effect. Whenever you hit crusade, do a billion haste or something. And that part is like I agree. Right now, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Things definitely feel slower on my mage too. I hit time warp and I'm like,
Did someone hit it? Yeah.
Am I even
exactly.
getting a
Yeah.
haste buff?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But that's just because everything is dialed back.
It's reset
Yeah,
to some
yeah.
degree. I mean, this expansion is a bit of a reset and a
Certainly.
refocus
for the sake of the future of WoW.
Yeah, I mean they have to do this. To
Every
some degree.
expansion in its own way is basically a reset. Since even the very beginning, when you'd replace epic loot that took you months to acquire with a green drop from a tree.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing when you're leveling. You're like, I worked so hard to get this gear, and you're like, this green quest item is
I was like,
so
I don't
much
wanna get
better,
a-
and you just have to put it on,
no.
and then put your old gear. Like I'll even do the thing where I put old gear in the bank because I'm like, I just want to keep it because I worked so hard for it, and then I know 3 months from now I'm just gonna go, what idiot put all this in
Yeah,
the bank?
I
I got to
know.
sit here and delete this for like an
Do you
hour.
have anything from like 14 years ago? Do you have any items that you've saved?
I did, and then there was a moment where they wouldn't give us more bag space, which was a long. This is an old school complaint with them, and they were like very limiting on vault space, and I was like, I gave up, and I finally deleted a bunch of stuff, which I can't get back now, and I don't have all those sets, and like they're hard to get back now to some degree, and I'm a little bit bitter about it.
Oh no!
But I finally gave up, and then I think like 3 months later they were like, we fixed it, and I was like, oh, I hate you so much.
And also, Hanson, one cool thing about that is
yeah.
any gear that you had at any point can now be transmogged on your character, so you can wear old stuff even if you're not wearing it.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
it has a collection system now.
Yeah,
It just
it does
didn't
now,
back. It
yeah.
didn't
Right,
back
right,
then,
right.
and
Okay.
I don't get credit in my collection system for the stuff I had
That
way
was
back.
gone, right.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sucks.
Like
that
all
sucks.
the vanilla WoW stuff that we collected is basically gone
It is,
Right.
because I
unfortunately.
needed to make bank space at one point, and then, in Burning Crusade, I think Cataclysm, my stuff has gone. I mean, it wasn't until.
They didn't. Yeah, it was a while in.
They added transmog of like when they added transmogging, they also put like a kind of void space you could store things in like that, but that didn't exist until like,
Okay.
the middle of the overall arc of WoW.
Dan, highlights so far, best
yeah,
moment, thing you appreciate the most.
Okay, so just really quick dialing down.
Yeah.
I like the zone. The quest zones were, I think they were more or less on par with Legion on the Horde side. I like the Nazmir zone. You do 3 main zones, and then you have like sort of offshoots into enemy territory for like other zones, and that's your leveling experience from 110 to 120 more or less. And they've dialed back on the system, the little like mobile game system where you send your followers out on missions. That's very tiny now.
Huh.
You've only got a couple followers and a couple things, and that's fine with me. I know a lot of people didn't like that system. It was pretty extensive in Draenor, and then they dialed it back a little bit last expansion. Now it's even dialed back even more, I think.
A lot more. It's
So-
the things that you get from that are like
Right.
your Hearthstone goes faster. It's
Yeah.
like that's not the sexiest.
It's
like
not.
like you're like,
We're
oh, I
not
worked so hard to get that boring thing.
We're not getting the super powerful effects that we used to get from that stuff. But,
Okay.
But it's still there. And I like the seafaring aspect theme is fun. It's fun themed. Like Zandalar's theme is fun. The trolls walking through the jungle, killing big dinosaurs, taking out blood trolls. This was fun stuff. This
Yeah.
was good. It was good. It was definitely I didn't have a problem with the leveling experience.
Okay.
The island expeditions seem fun right now.
And that's the weird new PvE, PvP
That's the thing that we took a look
Yeah.
at in that new
Okay.
gameplay
Yeah.
today. And I'm just hitting the point where I can start going on harder ones and the PvP ones, which I really want to get into. In the past few days, I've just been doing the regular ones. And that seems to be the major source of Azurite for you per week. Because there's a big meter you fill at the top, and if you hit the top of that, if you collect so much Azurite on these islands, you get a giant boost to your...
It's going to be a part of your. I mean, it's very obvious. It's going to be a part of your weekly routine of a character
Yes.
that you care about. You're
Yeah.
going to do the island expeditions to level this
And it
up.
seems okay, Andy? You're looking forward to it? Just
Yeah,
doing
I
that
did
again
some
and again?
earlier today. I thought they're fun. I mean, I'm with Dan. I think they're fun right now. I want to see where they go.
Right.
I want to see what they're like when they PvP. I mean, that's the thing is, so many things right now are hard to judge. Like even the open world stuff, like you could have war mode on, which I did when I leveled, and there were times when it was really fun, and there was time when war mode was cool, and then there was times when they sent me from the Alliance side to the Horde side, and we were like, oh, this is cool. We can kind of like expedition and like run into like people every
Yeah.
once in a while, and then like one world quest we went to go do, we're like, oh, that one's just right over there. It'll be fine. And we came around the corner, and there was like 200 Horde. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just like it
awesome.
Like it basically brought us to an area that was kind of a highway. Let's say like that's like a hard like quest point
Yeah,
that
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
is doing. And we came around the corner, and we were like, run. You know what I mean?
Just Han Solo with the stormtroopers?
And then
Okay.
we got killed, and we got farmed, and like,
Yep.
and so the game's a little out of balance right now as far as like how that settles. So it's hard to judge war mode or judge the islands because we don't know
Yeah.
how the PvP stuff goes. I mean, we
Yeah.
know how it works. We just don't know how it's going to play out.
Right, right.
So for me, like I turned off war mode now. When I go to the Horde Island, I turn war mode off.
Yeah, me too.
Which is I'm embarrassed to say it now because it's so overpopulated with people leveling. And it's so unbalanced because everyone on the Alliance side is leveling on the Alliance side. All the Horde people are leveling on the Horde side. So when you switch to the other side right now, it's heavily favored to the other side, right?
But that's again,
Okay.
this could be a time thing because once people are 120, they're going back and forth through the islands freely.
Yeah.
So
that would you would think it might even
Yeah,
out over
yeah.
time. It may not, because you are you have to take
you're
a
still in
boat
enemy
to
territory,
the
yeah.
other side essentially. You don't just like take a flight path. The flight paths are to this island. It's kind of like the old Kalimdor kind of effect,
you're
right?
basically they are two different worlds. You have to. It's a pain. Not a
Oh,
pain.
weird.
But there's
That's kind of cool, isn't it?
It's
Just to put some distance back in this world.
It is, but like at the same time too, I would point to that like now because I only have 3 zones to because there's only the Horde or there's only the Alliance way to level. It kind of removes the ability like when you play an alt to make that more varied.
absolutely yeah.
Right, you're stuck doing that kind of one path. I mean, now you can start with different of the 3, like do 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. You know, some
But you're
variation on that
basically
order.
doing all 3 or 2.5. as
Yeah,
I did,
at that time to level. So in the past, you could have done, I will do this one and I'll skip that one or whatever, because it was a world that like everybody did those. And I actually thought the quests were maybe better done and the world was better done because it was done for everybody
Yeah.
rather than 2 halves. And that's a tough, by the way, it's very close.
Okay.
I'm just saying like, if I were to give a nudge, I would give the nudge to Legion's like area, the Broken Isles, then I would these 2 islands, right?
Yeah.
But these new islands have a ton of new stuff in it. There's some great graphics. There's a bunch of new mobs. They did a lot of things. Like the art team did a lot of stuff to make these places more varied, a little more rich than they have been in the past. Even though you go to like an area that's like open fields, they look better. Like the houses look better. They've done a better job. Like right now the armor's pretty meh.
Yeah. Actually, I thought the Alliance had way better stuff, so I'm trying to farm your dungeons right now to get transmogs.
Yeah, I believe that. I got one of the transmogs I got for one of the boots I got from the Horde side was essentially flip flops.
Yeah, we wear garbage. Let's be
I
honest.
was
We-
like,
we-
wow, I have flip flops on.
we're
I am
actual trash.
transmogging this
Yeah.
right now before anyone sees me running around in Azeroth with flip flops on.
And this is one thing I do want to. Yeah, let's go into this right now because we're we're leading
Flip-flops?
here. Not flip flops, but
Oh.
we're talking about dungeons briefly. So I like the music and the characters and all that stuff in my Horde zones were cool.
Yeah.
I liked them. So dungeon though, man, I got to tell you, I am not loving the dungeons in regular mode.
Okay.
Because I haven't gotten to heroic and mythic yet. That's where everything changes. But while we were leveling, they didn't seem that interesting to me. At
Just visually?
on the Horde side, visually, enemy types, boss encounters, not a high note for me.
Okay.
Currently, again, this all changes when you start doing them higher difficulties. The enemies usually get more abilities and have different mechanics. But
Well, or the thing is too, like when you do it on normal mode, or even heroic, or even when you get to mythic and mythic plus, there'll be a power that they do that you just flat out ignore because it doesn't do anything.
Right.
And then as soon as it's doing like 400x damage, right? That little thing that in the past you ignored, all of a sudden you have to
Right.
start paying attention to.
Yeah.
So the level of thought and engagement in a dungeon
Correct.
it starts to multiply very quickly as you get to harder and harder dungeons where you really have to concentrate. And that's kind of where we were at the end of the last. I mean, that's the thing is
Yeah.
you're always looking at a curve that's going up, and we're at the bottom of that curve
The
trying to
dead bottom,
judge where
like-
the curve is going to go.
Right. Okay.
But I did see there were some interesting powers. I thought there were some interesting like bosses that I thought could get interesting.
I think your dungeons, because I've started doing them now that I'm 120, so I have access to Andy's dungeons, were cooler than mine going through. Because like a couple of mine were just like the goblin one, the mother load.
Oh, I
don't know
haven't
if you've
seen
done that one yet.
Yeah,
It
I
is
haven't done any of
just-
those. That's what I was going to be doing now instead of this podcast.
I would be in there too. It's just like a long corridor of shredders and goblins, and I.
Dude, well, I think the manor's the one, or the manor
Yes.
on Alliance side I was like, this is Black Cold. I don't want
Yeah.
another
Yeah, it really is.
series of closed corridors
Oh my God,
filled
yeah, I
with
know.
like wave or group after group after group of mobs. And the other thing too is with the changes that they made, because they change all your talents, right? So the way that you work as a tank, the way you work as a healer, at their core they're the same, but they try to change some of the elements as they tune it to the way they want the game to be played. And so at the end of the last game, there were people who were tanks who could pull like
The whole
entire dungeons. And I mean
and-
like on super hard modes. That's the fun thing about the MDI, the Mythic Dungeon Invitational, is you'd watch the people who are amazing at the game pull these insane groups. I mean, you'd be like, I wouldn't pull 2 of these groups, and they're pulling 7 of them all at once. And then they're going to kill them, and you would watch insane things happen.
Yes.
And so Blizzard was like, we don't want tanks to be able to hold aggro on
1,000.
1,000 mobs.
Like you just
You
go.
know
You
what
would,
I mean?
It would be one pull from the start, and this was normal. The start of the dungeon, boss
the
is
first
here.
boss.
You just drag everything
Really?
to the yeah.
Oh God.
And you had those powers, right? You had those things that would engage that many people, and so they changed it. So like even like an AOE power that in the past would have been like, I'm going to AOE this, and would have hit every single thing in its path.
Yeah.
Now they're like, it's going to hit 3.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Hey, your AOE taunt, it's going to hit 3. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
so they're really trying to like, they want to focus it in so that they can design. Ultimately, I think the goal is they want to be able to design a more tailored experience that they control the difficulty and how powers and people work.
And you think the community wants that, or they just want to keep breaking stuff?
That's a community point. That's
Well, that's the thing.
That's a
They're
tough
always
point.
they're gonna find a new way to break it, right? It's gonna be.
Well, it's challenging because here's the thing. They brought back buffs, which
Yes.
in the last month that I've been doing raids, I hate that they brought buffs back. They're like, we're bringing back individuality. I'm like, I don't want individuality in that level because like basically what it is like if you do a raid and you don't have a warrior, you don't get a 5% attack bonus.
Because it's not really individuality. Now you have to bring one of these.
You're
class,
just
so you get the
essentially
buff.
a requirement, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's now a requirement. So it's not just like, hey, I'm going to play with 20 of my friends that I know. I'm going to play with 20 of my friends that I know, and we have to have
And
these
one of them
exact,
has to be a mage. One of them has to be a warrior.
a priest. One of them has
Yep.
to be like you have to have these specific classes, which is these requirements. So there used to be a phrase that people make fun of that was like, "Bring the player, not the class."
Yeah. Oh,
But
gosh,
it's
yeah.
been mocked endlessly, by the way, that they said this at one point. But you are now back to requiring these things to be in the dungeons, right? And to be a part of what you're doing. And so that is on itself, like they have to balance that, right? And now they have to balance for PvE. And they have to balance for PvP,
Which is
right?
crazy,
And
yeah.
now they have to do all these kind of balancing passes to make sure that they're understanding of these kind of limited powers within these mythic dungeons because they want the mythic dungeons to be interesting and to be like kind of an esport to some degree as well. So
Okay.
another thing they need to balance. And then on top of that, in the past, they even like for world PvP, which is kind of a goal of this thing with
Yeah.
war mode, there were a time where they were like, look, man, we're just not balancing world PvP. I mean, they literally said, we're not balancing
World PvP
this.
was thrown under the bus, rightfully so. I think for many
wild.
years.
in the
There was no way to handle that. Right?
Yeah, they were like,
Yeah.
we're not doing it. We're just not going to balance it. So anyone that's like out of whack or anyone that figures out a weird, balance, like thing like, well, hey,
Have
if I
at
wear
it.
this shoulders and like I can go blow people up as a tank, which is what was happening. A lot of people were playing tanks and just destroying people. They were like, that's world. We're not going to control that. But now it's a major portion of this game. So the list of things that they need to manage has increased, right? And that's part of the reason why maybe the neck and like the powers that you're getting from the Azerite armors are maybe a little more predictable.
Right. Okay.
Right, predictable, in which I used the word generic earlier, which I'm
sure.
going to reuse now a little bit because that's my feeling a little bit. They have flattened it to make it easier to balance across this wide area of balance that they
my
want to do.
God.
But as a seasoned WoW player, and I think Dan will agree with me in that, is that when they open up to more, I get concerned.
It's a lot to undertake, and I do want to see how it shakes out. I still disagree with you about the gear, though. I think it's going to end up being more interesting than the artifact in the end.
I hope so, but
We'll
I mean,
see.
you get a gear,
because now I get excited about drops again. Like something drops, like so this one has an unlock at 7, 15, and 25, and they're all different. It's like I'm still excited about gear drops instead of like, okay, this slot is done. This slot is done forever.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
will-
I agree with that. The slot being done forever was lame when you got
Yeah.
like the one Lego.
Right.
But I kind of feel like they could have been more interesting in like balancing the meta
Yeah.
and challenging like what Legos you used and use them as like powers to make it more interesting. Because ultimately,
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Legos were like a double-edged sword for me because, like, yes, it feels amazing to get one, right? And you're super powerful, and they have crazily
Yes.
cool effects. But at the same time, you get that, you're like, all right, I'm done with that.
you're done with
that's
that.
never changing. I'll see you in 2 years.
but I think that comes down to balance, and I also think that comes down to like what the raids have to offer. And I think
Yeah,
without raid
that's
gear
true.
now, that's an interesting challenge as we look to that and where that goes.
See, it's interesting because there's not raid sets, but there are still sets in the game. I
Well,
noticed
there's
that
still
was
sets in the game that you
interesting.
collect for transmog purposes, but I'm saying that like
I mean, like set effects. I noticed
yeah,
that
set
one thing,
effects
yeah.
to that from the Azerite pieces that you get from those dungeons. Yes, right.
I actually saw a real set while I was leveling. That was weird.
A real set that you were leveling.
Like a set, like set bonuses.
Oh,
like
from
an
like individual
actual item
dungeons.
set.
Oh, from dungeons kind of thing.
It was outside in the overworld, like some kind
Was
of.
it?
I killed a bird.
Huh.
I killed a vulture, and like it drops like something of a bird set, which gives movement speed for having X pieces.
So it,
I know,
it
weird.
gives a worthless bonus. Yeah. Okay.
But,
Oh,
but
okay.
they still exist.
Okay. All right. They still exist. Worthless bonus. But
but-
it's there.
Because the evidence, maybe there are going to be dungeon sets.
Yeah, I mean, there could be. I mean, there's a lot of things they can do, and they'll get player feedback, and they'll change. I mean, that's the thing. It's a live game, right? They can
That's why
change
they-
a lot
yeah,
of things.
that's
So
why
it's
they-
like anything we complain about now could sound stupid
And even
a week from
even a
now.
week. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean,
because,
like-
Right.
because we are just about to hit that real content.
This is where it
we're about
begins.
to start fighting
Yeah.
in real dungeons, doing
Okay.
real encounters instead of like that's probably one of the reasons why I am so down on the standard dungeon experience. What I was loving because there was really nothing. Like I just
Right.
like the boss does the thing. You're like, yeah.
Okay. But
Well, you've been doing
still.
normals. Normals
Right.
are typically pretty easy.
I'm well aware.
I was tanking them some just to get fast queues, and I
Yeah.
felt like they were okay to tank. Like they were interesting, at least a
Yours
little
were
bit.
cooler. Yours were cooler looking, I think, because now I've done all of the Alliance side ones too, and I think they're cooler. That one with the pirate one that you guys have.
You have to chase a greased pig.
I love that part.
You loved that part? Oh my god! I
you get
thought,
to- you
I
get to
thought
read
What
it.
is this?
Dude, in Mythic Plus, I'm gonna be so mad when we get to that thing and we're on a timer and someone has to catch a greased pig. I'm gonna
Literally
be
a
furious.
furious.
pig just running around.
Okay,
and
yes,
running
it's like
after
a
it?
there
joke.
literally
It's
is,
like a
yes.
gag. They you get to this arena, they're like, all right, well your mission is you gotta catch this greased pig. And they're like, I like
Bet
the
you want
announce-
that bird set then.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan typically of Blizzard's like
Silliness.
for lack of a
Dumb
opera house encounters.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Opera House. That's good.
Where they have like different guys that can come in based on and they're like they call them out like, hey, today you're gonna be fighting this guy. It'll be different than the other guy you used to fight.
Okay.
And,
It
like,
changes up the dungeon, so it's
Yeah, yeah,
different
Totally.
every
Some
time.
a little bit of
theatrical
variance.
thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Gotcha. So overall, Dan, review is coming soon,
Review's
right?
coming. Yes, it's coming.
Do you have any idea when?
Obviously, it takes a long time to be able to do that with any kind of accuracy, especially since we're not going to have Warfronts or raids for some time now.
September
So,
4th, I think, is raids go live.
So is the review waiting for that stuff to come in?
I'm not sure. The review will be soon.
Okay.
We could do some kind of review in progress, I think,
It'll-
until,
yeah.
until the raids happen.
And Andy's second opinion review will also be going live.
I mean, we're going to talk about this. Believe me, this discussion is barely beginning. I assure you.
I'm trying to not talk to Dan. I was actually a little worried about coming here and talk about the podcast. I didn't want to I've
Yeah.
got feelings on it certainly.
Okay,
you know what I
good.
mean?
Ooh.
Like
All
I
right.
think the game is interesting. I love WoW. I'm gonna play it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna level up a number of characters and see the world. And I'm excited. This weekend I want to do the Horde side. So I mean, there's a lot of things I want to see and do in
Yeah.
the game, and I'm excited to get to the raids. I just hope that's my hope is that they do make the Azeroth armor interesting because right
Right.
now it's not that interesting.
sure.
To be fair, I agree with
The
Andy on that.
dungeons, to your point, I don't think the dungeons are that interesting either. I
Yeah.
hope the dungeons get interesting. I hope the raids are interesting. I hope the war mode is good. There's a lot hanging on hope, and there's a lot hanging on because even like our characters right now.
I'm sure I wasn't blown. I'm trying to think back. I'm sure I wasn't blown away the last two expansions doing leveling dungeons either. Like, that's.
I don't know. I had fun in Legion. I had a lot of fun in Legion.
Yeah, I guess I did too.
You know what I mean? Like,
hey, wait a minute. That was a good.
like Legion was a lot of. I think
It was.
that was the hardest thing they had to face. I think the biggest boss they had to face with this game was how good their last.
I almost agree
could be
because
worse.
a lot of the stuff that we have now, we kind of are spoiled by because we're just used to it now from Legion.
Yeah, they took a lot of things that were standard in that and are now standard in that. They did
Right,
not
right.
create new loops in some areas.
Okay.
So what we have is essentially, the end game loop right now, as 2 days in, looks a lot like Legion's. I mean, you've got your world quests, you got your dungeon options, and island expeditions now, which are really growing on me because they're like 3-person. You don't have to have a tank, you don't have to have a healer. You just get in there and kick around, have fun. Super 10, 15-minute experience depending.
Uh-huh.
And I'm interested today because I'm finally the right eye level to get in to actually do PvP in there against a real team of actual people. Have you tried that yet, Andy? I haven't.
Nope. That was that today's. I have an agenda.
What am I doing
for a
here?
while. I know
What
exactly.
am I doing here?
Islands, and then heroics tonight.
I love you guys, but I'll let you go home
Yeah,
and
I know.
play more WoW in your own peace, and you come back and talk about it at some other point. How
If
about
anybody made it through the podcast through this much of me and Dan
seriously.
talking about WoW,
And we were dialed
kudos
in.
to
We were
them.
dialed in too. So
that? I'm
I bet they
glad.
check
I'm
out
glad
after
you
a
guys got
sentence.
nerdy. That's the point of having you two here together. But for right now, you guys want to clap out?
Oh yeah, it's good by the way.
That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.